I'm going to call this information session to order. My name is Erica Jacobson. I have lived here in Newbury for the past 10 years, and for the past few years I've been involved in the new town's finance committee. I've been serving, I believe it's 3, maybe 4 years now. It blurs together. But through that work on the committee year-round, I hear about the financial dealings of the town and what's coming forward and what things we need to anticipate and what are the big things coming down the line. And so what I really wanted to do tonight was to give an opportunity for people to come and ask questions about the issues on the ballot prior to the election. Because of the way our calendar works, town meeting falls after the election. And a lot of these things require affirmative votes. In order for them to pass, they must pass both places. Basically, as Tracy and I think about a lot of this too, is that the ballot issues often have to do with how do we raise the money to pay for things, debt exclusion, general overrides. We need to figure out how to raise the money. And then at town meeting, we vote to how we're going to spend the money, because that's when the budget gets voted. So that's part of it. So rather than waiting until town meeting and people say, oh, I would have voted on the question one had I known this was the history of the request. So that's what tonight is meant to do. And so I pretty much worked and got a great group of people who have terrific information about the items and the ballot items on the warrant, on the ballot on Tuesday here to speak tonight. So the general consensus and what we're going to start with is that the agenda for tonight is going to be pretty straightforward. I'm going to do my quick little welcome. Chairman Walker is also going to speak and introduce, and then we're going to do a quick review of the 5 ballot questions. And just before we get started here, I'm going to ask the members of the people at the table to kind of say your name and your role here, because as the evening goes on, you'll see we have different people here who can answer questions about different ballot issues. So starting off, I'm Erica Jacobson, member of Finance Committee, Newbury resident, and parent of 2 children at Newbury Elementary. So,
Tracy Blaze, I'm the town administrator.
Jeff Walker, Chair of the Board of Selectmen.
Marshall Jesperson, I sit on the FinCom and I sit on the Capital Planning Committee, resident of Newbury for over 40 years now.
Jane Case, I also sit on the Finance Committee. I've been involved in the town since I got here in 1965. I have been on the Finance Committee probably 20 years, I guess, something like that. Both of my children went through the Newbury schools and Triton.
I'm Frank Remley. I'm currently chairman of the Finance Committee. I've lived in Newbury since 1992, and we like it. It's a great town. So we want to see it get better.
My name's Eric Svan. I'm Frank's neighbor. Literally. So I'm chairman of the Municipal Building Committee. I was on the Public Safety Complex Committee before the Municipal Building Committee. I'm a member of the Newbury Zoning Board of Appeals.
I'm Brian Forget. I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Triton Regional School District.
Christopher Farmer, the Superintendent of Schools.
great.
Mr. Moderator, may I take a simple statement? I am not here tonight to represent the Daily I'm here to learn about it. No, well, I'm saying, all right. I come in with a pencil and a pad, and everybody says, "Oh boy," you know. Don't worry about it. My purpose is here tonight is simply to learn like everybody else, because I'm out in the ground too. So,
Jen is here too.
Jen is here on Jen's here to have it covered. Thank you very much. I really thank everyone for attending. This is happy with to see the attendance and to see the room full. So, Chairman Walker.
Bill, Jen will duly note that. She'll make sure. I'm Jeff Walker, Chair of the Board of Selectmen. And I was going to really write down my opening remarks, but then I decided that it would be more from the heart if I kind of looked at you guys and just kind of flew by the seat of my pants. So, first of all, there are 3 thank yous. I would really like to thank Erica and all the folks that she put together. This is really well done that she's pulled this together. Secondly, I would really like to thank the voters that have come here tonight on a really wonderful night to take time out and come to try to understand some of the issues that are before us in Newbury. And the third thank you goes to all the people that work for the town of Newbury. As you can see are here, they take this just as seriously as we all do. So what I would like to do tonight, very quickly, is to try to just frame up some of the strategies real quickly that put us here, and maybe to detune the emotion that goes with an override in everyone's mind tonight. This town has had a history of an emotional attachment to the word no when it comes to overrides. And that sounds good at first blush, but if we were working creatively with town government and the fact that town government has needs and schools have needs, we would have had overrides before, and we probably wouldn't be in some of the predicaments that we are now. And I said schools and town needs, and especially public safety needs. So what we're gonna do tonight is try to show you how all your boards and committees with the town administrator, I mean, I go by town hall now and I see our people working on Fridays and Saturdays, and that's beyond 40 hours. So the town couldn't be trying harder. We couldn't be more transparent to try to have everyone understand what it's going to take to fuel Newbury's future. And I don't mean that it's all doom and gloom, because Newbury is a wonderful town. And some of the construction now that we have coming into our town is really of high-end construction, and it has been for the last 5 years. And that's because our town displays all the good things: good public safety, good schools, near the water, open space. So we worry about commercial retail. Well, the planning board, in their wisdom, just tweaked the commercial highway rezoning bylaw, and I don't know if you've gone up Route 1, but we have Angelo's, TCW's, what is that, a storage facility? I mean, and I'm missing one, the yoga studio. So Newbury's future is bright, but it's definitely gonna take, and it's gonna need some help from the voters. Our infrastructure is old. Life expectancies of a lot of things that you're gonna hear about tonight, it needs folks to invest in the future. Thank you.
Could you use the mic? It's very hard to hear you back here.
Okay, now, we'll try and speak up for you in the back, but these microphones go to the broadcast. So we don't have a public address system in here. All we have is the microphones that go out to the people who may be watching on television. So we'll shout at them, and you'll probably hear it as well, okay?
And you probably have the air conditioner, whatever it is the ambient noise, so you can't hear us, right?
Okay, I will do my best to speak loudly. What we're going to do is do a really quick run through of the 5 questions and their shorthand tags, and then we'll go in depth into each question, starting in order from question 1 to question 5. The order and the language that I'm presenting up here tonight is exactly the language that's presented on the ballot. That cannot change. The ballots have been printed, and in fact, I already voted because I'm not going to be in town on Tuesday. So the ballot language is what it is, and the order is what it is. So those are where we're going to start. So we'll go quickly through each of the questions. The first one is the Triton Stadium. And this is, shall the town of Newbury be allowed to exempt from the provisions of Proposition 2.5, so-called the amounts required to pay its share of the bond issued by the Triton Regional School District to pay the costs of renovating the Triton Stadium, including the payment and all other costs incidental and related hereto. When we get into this, we'll talk exactly about what this means, what type of exclusion it is, and what the approximate costs are with it. But like I said, the language on the screen is the language that's on the ballot. And that's one of the reasons we think it's helpful to have a night where you can say, there's no number on there. We can explain that and how that gets written. Question 2 is snow and ice. Shall the town of Newbury be allowed to assess an additional $100,000 in real estate and personal property taxes for the purpose of increasing the snow and ice removal line item appropriation for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2015? Question 3. public safety facility engineering. Shall the town of Newbury be allowed to exempt from the provisions of Proposition 2.5, so-called the amounts required to pay for the bonds to be issued in order to pay the cost of engineering services for a public safety facility or any similar facility, including all costs incidental or related thereto? Question 4, pumper truck. Shall the town of Newbury be allowed to assess an additional $420,736.17 in real estate and personal property taxes for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2015, for the purposes of purchasing a KME Custom Flex pumper fire apparatus on a Panther chassis? Got through that one. Question 5, road improvement program. Shall the town of Newbury be allowed to assess an additional $125,000 in real estate and personal property taxes for the purpose of funding a road improvement program for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2015? So those are the 5 questions that are before voters on Tuesday's ballot. So we're going to start at the top with the Triton Stadium. And this is the request for funds for the Newbury share of the Triton Stadium. I wanted to answer a question that was submitted via the planning board that they had received in their offices, and that's what we did this week too, is that questions were sent in via email, and then we also encourage you to come up and ask a question here at the microphone so that people watching on the show can hear your question and then hear what we're responding to. So the first one we received was from a resident had asked why the request for the Triton Stadium project was on the ballot when the following statement was on the Triton website, that as it stands now, due to complicating factors that vary between towns in regards to other operating or capital expenses, the school committee will not be seeking approval to borrow money this spring. The vote to incur debt and subsequent request for approval from member towns will be delayed until the fall and align with the potentially scheduled special town meetings. And I'll take the first stab at answering the part of this question, as it's been explained to me, is that in order to pay for this issue, for this Triton Stadium, the way the Town of Newbury Board of Selectmen Finance Committee recommend moving forward is with a debt exclusion override, which means that money will be borrowed, it will be collected through your taxes, and when the debt is retired, at the end of the period, it will no longer be collected. It's not an ongoing, it's a debt exclusion for this purpose. And so that would help save our operating budget. In order to get a debt approval, a debt exclusion, it has to be approved at the ballot. It can't be approved at town meeting. If we didn't do it in the spring ballot, since there's no fall elections, we would have to hold a special election for that one issue. That would come at a cost of about $3,500. So in order to be able to be proactive and get the source of funding secured, that's why it's on the ballot now. Any questions about this? Come on up to the mic for questions, please. And for the purpose of this, Brian Forget and Tracy and other members of the committee here will be answering.
And for those in the audience, the reason for the microphone is so that people watching television can hear, because they have the same problem we do.
I heard last time that people saw me spoke on TV. I didn't know. I was so embarrassed. Like I wasn't dressed, not dressed again. I just have a question and you already answered this for me, but I think that other people might want to know. The debt exclusion that you talked about, when Triton, if we all vote yes and Triton gets the money, and that drops off your taxes after. How do people know that that drops off your taxes? And is that the law that it has to? Because I know that in my dealings with folks that I've talked a lot about at school, people were like, and this is just me talking, people saying, oh, they never drop it. And I'm like, that's not true. They do drop it. But how do people know that they drop it? Thank you.
Okay, I'll take that one. Marshall Jesperson on the Finance Committee. We're saving Frank for the hard ones. Debt exclusion means that we do this override and it's for a specific purpose. When that purpose is paid off, the debt, then the amount that we had taxed people drops. In fact, what we have now is certain debts that we are paying off are actually coming off of the tax bills over the next few years. And so what we're looking at as we're adding some more override expenses to the tax rolls, we're rolling some off so that we're going to see a smaller increase than you would otherwise expect. Is that clear enough?
It's clear to me, but I don't think people know that. Do you guys post that information anywhere?
That information is something that we talk about both at the meetings, the public meetings, and Frank has talked about it at every one of the annual town meetings, of the fact that we have types of debt that when the debt is paid off, the taxes actually roll back to reflect that.
Tracy.
And in addition to that, all communities in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts are regulated by the Department of Revenue, and we have to complete what's called a recapitulation sheet each year. And if you wanted to go onto DOR's website, you can see it, and each one of the debt issues is listed there. And when they're retired, they come off. So it is very strictly regulated by DOR.
Thank you.
Erica, can I request that people feel comfortable if they give their name when they go to the mic, please?
Sure, yes, please do. That's standard with most of our meetings. What,
Can I just add something
sure,
to this?
she's coming up too, but yes.
Yeah, one of the things that, since I've been on the Finance Committee starting in 2003, that I'm most proud of is that our debt service now will be 7% of our total budget. In 2003, when I first started, it was over 15%. I looked at it and I said, what are we doing? Because the other towns around us were all around 9–10%. Not that we should be identical to the other towns, but it just felt like we had overexpended. And so all that debt is coming off, and it comes right out of the general budget every year, what we pay to the banks to cover our debt. So that's important. So in some ways, this is kind of a good time to be adding back some important capital needs. And the other thing I'd like to mention is that that I'm kind of intrigued by is that in 2011, 5 years ago, our town budget was just about identical to what it's going to be in 2016. Now, there's been a real cost to that. We've lost some services as a result of it, some of which we don't need. And we've also been very creative. Tracy's been very creative with others as well, such as the Board of Health with the transfer station and the outsourcing of it and so forth, to raise other types of revenues. So nonetheless, we've lost some services, but we've improved the business of running the town, which I think is really important.
Elizabeth DeGrenier, 16 20th Street. Do we have an idea of the amount of our share of the cost?
Do you want it?
Brian can answer that better than anybody, but our share is going to be based on enrollment as a percentage of the overall enrollment. Brian, do you want to take?
Correct. So the overall project right now, the estimate is $4 million. About 800,000 would come from other sources, ranging from a large donation from the bank to other funds received. So the bonding at this point is estimated at $3.2 million. As Frank alluded to, we have the regional agreement calls for an apportionment based on enrollment. And so at this point, the agreement in the discussions between the selectmen from each town that have been meeting to discuss this have agreed that to stick with the regional formula, it would be based on enrollment. So I believe the number was around 71,000 per year for the town of Newbury. We were working as a group to further reduce that cost. With the project would be planned, the rental of the facility for outside athletic groups would hopefully bring in additional revenue that would reduce that cost each year, as well as provide some capital stabilization to maintain the stadium long into the future. So, that answers the question?
Sure.
At the meeting Monday night at Pitta Hall, someone alluded to we're going to be using artificial turf on this stadium, and that really we're not a we're not a university. Why do we need this? And I'm just questioning that also.
Good question.
Sure.
That topic has been debated heavily by the school committee and administration, and it's been a discussion with the towns as well. It is becoming standard that high schools have synthetic turf. For us, there has been a significant amount of discussion. Obviously, the crumb rubber comes up as a topic of debate over and over. But for us, the issue has come down to the ability and the amount of time, the field time. For us, we have the ability, the project calls for a complete overhaul and a redesign that allows for regulation soccer, field hockey, lacrosse, and football. And right now there are some pictures on slides. If you go to the current conditions.
Yes, this is the current, actually, the bleachers are no longer there.
Yeah, the bleachers don't
because
exist
they-
anymore, thankfully. We don't have to look at those pictures anymore. But the track has deteriorated, obviously. But the field is such that with any amount of rain, and certainly with what we had for a winter, we have to use the field sparingly. So we can have a game and then it has to rest for a day or two. If there's any rain, we're off the field. With a synthetic turf system, as we've talked with the Conservation Commission and Planning Board, it actually helps the drainage even more so in retaining water, and it can handle the technical, I think, a 3.5-inch rainfall. Is that right, John? A 3.5-inch rainfall and still be playable. So the idea is the amount of the ability for increased playing time, where we can schedule back-to-back games and not have downtime, was the major reason why we ended up going with the synthetic. We looked at cost cycle analysis of synthetic versus natural. We've looked through all that data, and there's certainly data we can show you. I don't have all that data with me right now, but at the end of the day, it came down to the fact that it is an expectation for many student athletes, as it is becoming the norm, and for all of those reasons, as well as the safety and the fact that you've got a 2.5-inch base of crumb rubber in synthetic that for shock impact, obviously I think we'd be living under a rock if we didn't hear the discussions about concussions, and we're repeatedly dealing with concussions, and the improved safety of the field is also a major component of that decision. Yeah.
Come on up.
Paul Perino. Question is, was the 3.2 million our share, or is that the total bond? And then the other question is, how many years? And what would that be on an annual basis?
So, $4 million project, $3.2 million is the total assessed to the 3-member communities, apportioned based on student enrollment, with, again, using current enrollments, those fluctuate yearly. It would be about 70 to 80,000 70 to 77,000, sorry, per town. Newbury's was right around 71,000 using today's enrollment figures. That's per year. That's a 20-year fixed rate, not fixed rate, but fixed municipal bond.
And in anticipation of the follow-up question to that the estimated tax impact calculates out to $23 on an average property that's valued at our average of $421,347. So take your home value, go where you up or down from there. $23 per year.
What was the value of the house?
$421,347.
Mary Leary, is the prospective donor confirmed, or they've already calculated that donation in, and that, or is it still out there?
Sorry, I have to get the mic. The figure of 3.2 million bonded assumes only known donors. The major donor is the Institution for Savings that have given us 600,000. There are other potential donors floating out there. Nothing at the $600,000 level, but given the extended time period to now, where we would be bidding this out next winter and constructing 11 and a half months from now, but who's counting? That would be potential for more donors to come forward. The committee has identified other naming rights, whether it be the press box or concession stand, that could bring in, hopefully, more donors, but that would further reduce.
Dale Williams, would the public from the three towns have access to the stadium? In other words, the track, especially for walking or running during school hours or after hours?
Yes. Can you go to the new slide?
Sure.
So the new design calls for an amenities building, which is the only thing that is added to this project that doesn't exist right now, is an amenities building. Very briefly, the only reason we're doing an amenities building is because we now have to meet plumbing code. As soon as we touch the bleachers, which we obviously had to do because we had to remove them, as soon as we touch the bleachers, we have to come in compliance with state plumbing code. The design for the amenities building that you see at the entrance is an open tunnel. It'll have restrooms, male and female on one side, and it'll have a ticket booth and concession stand, a team room, and some storage. That area, if you look at the top right, top left, to learn my left and right, the top left corner picture will remain open into the stadium. This will not be locked. There will be bollards to make sure that people can't otherwise think mischievously and drive a motorcycle or a car in, but the field will not be locked. There will be a 6-foot perimeter fence that, if you look at the bottom or right-hand picture, that will run around the entirety of the stadium. There'll be a 4-foot paved walking pedestrian path around the entire stadium enclosure inside that 6-foot fence, and then there'll be a 4-foot fence surrounding the inside of the track for pedestrians to stand on the path and watch track and field events, as well as obviously games. All of those gates will remain unlocked. Part of the discussions the committee has had repeatedly is that this is being paid for by the community. This is a community resource, so that folks who want to come in and walk on the track, we will have to have some policy about if it's being used by students, we have to restrict and at least obviously monitor that situation. But off hours, evenings, early morning, there's all kinds of folks that are there now jogging on the track, even though it is not a track many people would want to jog on. But this is a facility that we would hopefully assume that the community would enjoy, as well as the student athletes at Triton.
Any other questions on the Triton Stadium project? Or closing remarks from anyone on the committee here?
Just one point regarding the finances of the project. I think it's important to note also that the capital assessment, the annual capital assessment that we currently pay to Triton is reducing at a rate of about $20,000 a year. So that's going to mitigate the impact of the $70,000. And in fact, in 3 or 4 years, it negates it, because you've got 20,000 coming off of capital assessments, and in 4 years you got 80,000 already off of that, and you're talking 70,000 in new capital. So it
Yeah.
Because of reduced enrollment?
no, that's
No,
because our
because the
capital
old debt.
assessment, the old debt is coming
Okay.
down.
Now I understand.
So it makes, it mitigates and negates it after 4 years, in effect.
Yeah, so that's the Triton Regional
That's
High
part of
School,
it.
Middle School project.
Right.
That actually is slowly
Yeah.
dropping each year through its payoff in 2021,
Yeah.
which would technically be fiscal '21.
But-
And then that drops off completely. That entire assessment of 168,000 drops off completely.
But there's another economic issue that I'm not sure many people really know about now.
Loud,
that-
Frank, loud.
Sorry, I have a soft voice. Yelling at my dog too much. Anyway, it's competitiveness. I hope you all realize at this point that Triton has now passed the break-even point on choice in, choice out. The district still now has more choice in than it has choice out. And it wasn't too long ago that was seriously reversed. And so we want to keep it that way. This is a competitive situation. Other schools are getting new athletic facilities, such as Newburyport, which is one of the biggest competitors that Triton has always had. And it's important that it be an attractive institution. And by my count, by the way, somebody mentioned the field turf. That's state of the art. And the new field, which will be bigger, will accommodate, in my estimation, about 7 sports. Right now, it's only football. And the new track, we don't, Triton, the district, doesn't have home track meets because the track is in such poor condition. And yet we have a really good track team. And I think it's really important to athletes in particular that want to combine. I'm a big fan of the scholar athlete. And I think that this is going to be a really important improvement and facility for Triton.
Last question? Yeah.
What's the alternative?
I'll state that into the microphone. The question was, what's the alternative for all those at home? At this point, we don't have a lot of alternatives. I mean, honestly, we've had a discussion about what is Plan B. The bleachers are condemned, so we had to take those down. We could certainly leave it like it is now and have no bleachers or seating and and put the field, restore the field, or leave the field like it is now. We could do that. We would continue to not be able to have home track events of any kind, and we would have limited use of the field. We had many discussions about staging the process, maybe a multi-year plan, and the problem becomes as soon as you put in the bleachers, you have to do the restrooms, and you can't do the bleachers until you resize the field if we're going to change the geometry of the field. And you can see here, if you look, for those in the room, the geometry of the field is very narrow right now. We're actually expanding, removing the visitors' bleachers and expanding the field wider to the edge of the marsh. There'll be a retaining wall at the edge of the marsh with a walkway all along the marsh there. So because we're changing the geometry of the field, that implicates changes that we would have to finalize before we looked at bleachers, and if we touch bleachers, we have to do the amenities building. So the discussion to date has been we need to do this as an entire package, and we need to keep trying until we can find a way to do it as a complete package, because the staging presents its own challenges.
Can I make, for people that are standing outside, even though you're gonna be standing, come on in the room. There's room up, you can come behind us, come on in the room, because you can't hear. So we'll take a second to let some people in, because they won't be able to hear.
Right.
You can stand up here, right behind us. It's all one happy town.
Yep, come on up.
Let everything settle down a little.
Hi, I'm Nancy Weinberg from Fairview Avenue. My understanding is there has been a lot of discussion about the level of toxicity in AstroTurf, and I wondered if that's come up. I bet it has, and what the findings have been, because there, I think, have been a lot of reports about problems.
I will say, yes, there obviously have been a lot of discussions. Excuse me. The concern lies in the crumb rubber infill. It is recycled tires. There are alternatives, and the alternatives, Nike Grind makes a product. It's crushed up shoes rather than tires. The upcharge for a premium infill is between $200,000 and $350,000, the difference. So we did spend a lot of time. There are some districts that have chosen to go with other alternatives. The majority of the alternatives are either, for example, corn husk or cork, that people say it's great for a year or two and then it starts to break down and you're spending the money again, or other substances that don't provide the shock attenuation, so you don't have that safety mitigation for concussions. We have looked at lots of research, and I will mention Dina Sullivan, who is a Newbury member of the school committee, provided, how many pages? Reams of paper to the entire committee to review. There are some significant studies, one out of Penn State, one out of Canada more recently, that did study the toxicity of the crumb rubber infill. In all of the research, including a ruling that the Mass DPH just did for the Medway or Medford, I think it's Medway, asked for an opinion, and DPH has come down and said there is no clinical research that proves there is harm. There are certainly one-off cases and folks that have kind of taken that and run with it in the media. But for all the research we've done, there is no conclusive evidence that this crumb rubber is causing anything. We're certainly not playing expert. I am not a scientist. The committee has not pretended to be scientists. We're looking on the research that we can find out there. And to this point, the committee has not taken the formal vote, but the committee to date has supported the concept of saving the $250,000 and using the crumb rubber infill.
Can I just mention? Absolutely. Could I just mention that the New York State Department of Health has looked at this issue and come to the similar conclusion that there is no evidence whatsoever that there is potential harm in this infill. One of our primary concerns as a school district is the safety, health and welfare of children. As a superintendent, I would not put children in an environment that I knew was likely to be unhealthy.
Hi, Hillary Lind from Byfield. I have a question. What happens if the other towns, have they voted? And is it have to be unanimous? Or what if 2 out of the 3 vote yes or no? Or what happens with that?
It's a 3 out of 3 have to say yes to this one. And Rowley has voted the expense at town meeting, but they vote backwards of up.
Correct. So there's 2 votes. Hi, Hillary. There is a vote, the vote that the school committee is concerned with, or I should say is the action is coming from a vote of the school committee to vote to incur debt and approve the project. The town at a town meeting has to vote to say yes, the district can incur that debt. The separate vote, the election, the ballot at the box, question 1 is the how do you raise the money? That we don't have a say in. Obviously, we're working with the towns to do whatever we can to support this, but that's a town decision of how to pay the assessment. At this point, Rowley and Newbury are choosing to put the override election on a question on the ballot. Everyone votes the same day next Tuesday. Rowley already had their town meeting in which I think it's their bylaws, have a requirement that they have a question on the town meeting warrant that authorizes the election question. So that's what passed at their town meeting, simply to say, yes, we want to vote next week. So that's the only vote that's occurred in Rowley. So if Rowley passes the override next Tuesday and Newbury passes the override next Tuesday, that answers the how will the town pay for it. Salisbury to date has said they want to absorb it in their operating expenses. So that then answers the question, how does the town pay for it? The second question is, does the town approve of the project? Originally, that would have gone, the planning was that was going to go to the town meetings as well this spring. And at the end of the day, if you were following the budget process, the state likes to throw in wrinkles that worked fabulously for the town of Newbury this year based on enrollments. But it created a pretty significant increase in the assessments to the other 2 towns while Newbury's assessment went down this year. So that got pushed off. So the plan now is the committee would vote to finalize the project and incur the debt late summer, early fall, and then the towns would take action on that at a fall town meeting. The way this works, the budget has to be a supermajority, 2 out of 3 towns. To incur debt, it has to be all 3 towns that approve this. So when the committee votes and says, yes, we want to incur debt, we then have our district treasurer has 7 days to certify it to the treasurers in the 3 towns. The 3 towns have 60 days. 60 days to hold a town meeting. They can hold a town meeting and say yes. They can hold a town meeting and say no. Or the towns can choose to take no action. If the no action is taken in that 60-day window, that's an affirmative vote. So a yes vote approves, no vote at all approves, a no vote stops the project. Any one town votes a no and the project can't move forward. And then we go to what's plan B.
And this is why no one has sent out an easy to understand email of how do we get this passed. That's why when everybody's asked me, I'm like, you have to come to the meeting because we have to be able to explain the different if-thens that come
Can
along
I say
with
too,
it.
the original question that started this is an error on the website because things are changing faster than our webmaster can keep up with. So initially, it wasn't going to be a vote this spring, and then in the last few weeks, that has all changed, so
Yeah.
everyone's trying to keep up.
We have any remaining questions on the stadium before we move on? This is the first of 5, so.
Pardon me, if I don't stand up, I think you can all hear me. But in 60 years, 62 years of towns trying to do something, my only advice is, and I didn't originate. One of the greatest public speakers said this. He says, "First I tell them what I'm going to tell them, then I tell them, and then I tell them what I told them." And take that for what it's worth, because trying to get something is, trying to understand that in the whole. What the people want to know is, what is it going to cost me a year that I don't have to pay now? All of the other stuff that you have to deal with really comes down to that those who haven't been able to go to meetings aren't particularly interested and so forth, but are concerned about their welfare. That's my only advice. Make it visible, make it as straight as you can, and let the chips fall, I guess, where they have to fall.
Thank
I've
you.
seen so many things fail because of the complexity that couldn't be passed on in town meeting.
Thank you. Any other questions?
John Waraska from Newbury. What other major expenses do you see coming down the road that would also require additional overrides or large expenditures? Obviously for the school.
Yeah. Not my personal expenses. I mean, we have a capital plan that we've put into place. The Newbury Elementary School is owned by the town. The town has a capital planning committee that is planning for Newbury Elementary. And even in the few years since that was implemented, some wonderful improvements have been made. The regional campus is owned by the district. It was completed in 2001 as a rehab. And I wish I could say construction projects in the public sector always come out perfectly. If you've walked through, you know the leaks, you know the things that have already deteriorated in the, 14 years since it came online. I can tell you there are no plans right now. We don't have a schedule that says in 5 years we need to replace. But at this point, we have 15 years on a roof that manufacturers would say 25 years. Windows that say 45 years. So we're not looking in the next year or two to come back and say we need a $1.2 million roof or a renovation. And we've talked about building space needs when the high school, middle school was built originally in '69 and then renovated in 2001. The needs of our student population were very different in that we now have a student population that requires some specialized space and training and smaller classes. And so the way you and I went to school with the teacher in front with 25 students in a desk is not always the situation that affords the best educational opportunities for our students. So space, we're always challenged for space, but at this point in time, I would say it's safe to say there are no formal plans at this point that we have to come back to the town and say, we need a new fill in the blank. Things can happen, obviously, but.
Should we move?
Thank you. Yeah, we're going to move on to question 2. Question 2 is snow and ice. Snow and ice for an assessment of an additional $100,000 in real estate and personal property taxes for the purpose of increasing the snow and ice removal line item beginning for appropriation for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2015. Any questions on this one from the floor? I will read the question I did receive. Oh, go ahead. I have a question. You go.
In the past, when we overrode the budget, I mean, we do it all the time, right, Tracy? Where do we get the money?
We've used a couple of different options. We have an opportunity to petition the Finance Committee to use funding from their reserve fund, which is set aside for extraordinary and unforeseen expenses. So if there's funding available there, we would go to the Finance Committee. We can do, in the last month of the fiscal year, we can do year-end transfers. So if a department happens to have some money left over, we can do some of those transfers. And the third option, which has happened here in the past, is if you have a deficit and we don't have the ability to cover it within that year, it immediately comes off the amount of money you have to spend the next fiscal year. So you're starting your next year behind the 8 ball.
So, you know, when you get hired, I thought one of the things you're trying to do is build up, and I don't know if that's the right term, cash reserve, you know.
Reserves, yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
the bank account.
Yep.
And can you tell me what that number is at now?
I can tell you close to where they're. Let's see. Right now, our certified free cash is at, let's see, 1.386 million. And we have $207,000 and a little over $207,000 in our stabilization fund.
Okay, good. All right, so.
We also have a land sale fund, which is available for capital expenditures also.
But not for this, because this is an operating expense.
Yeah.
Okay. And if this gets voted in, this is a permanent?
Yes.
This is a general override, and this falls right with the question that was asked online too. Is it just because we had a bad winter in 2015? No, this is our last 5 years average, our budget and actuals. The number in yellow is how much we've budgeted each year for the past 5 years, and the number in green is how much we've actually had to spend. And the 2015 number is to date. It may still rise if we get like late invoices. But that is where we're at, and if you want to see exactly what those numbers look like, on average, the snow and ice account has been underfunded by $108,000 every year. So it means at the end of the year, we're plugging in something that we know, when you look at the money, you know it's going to be that much every year. So what this override is set to do is to increase it so that that line item can be increased for FY15 to 20, it would end up at $255,000 would be that number, bringing us much closer to that average. At the end of the year, if money is left in that account, it then goes to our free cash. And then, yeah, and so as you can see, and this is very simple, in 4 out of 5 years, we've exceeded it. And we've usually exceeded it by a nice little chunk. It's not like, oh, we went over by $10,000 or $15,000. We are going over by 157,000, 143,000. This year it's 143,000 so far. And that's the reason and rationale behind this, is that this isn't something that's just happened because we had a horrible February. This is something that is an ongoing, and it's a prudent financial practice.
And one of the best ways to keep with the plan establishing reserves is by not budgeting deficits. That's how you hit your reserves in a very negative way.
And you know, I did I don't know, I got this number, $32 it's going to cost for the average taxpayer.
Yep.
Just about, yes.
Yep, that's the average based on the average property value, which is
That's all
that
I wanted to say.
$421,000
Now,
average number.
now you have to remember that this is a bill we are going to pay. Okay? We can't get out of it. And so this is a budgeting item that says, let's put the money in so we can pay the bill. It's pretty simple.
Any other questions?
I could probably shout it out loud, but what happens if next year's winter, with the money, if next year's winter is done, we have no
That's a good,
The question, I'll repeat it. The question is that if next year's winter is one of those low years, like we have $255,000 budgeted and it comes in at $100,000, that extra money goes into our free cash at the end of the year. So it doesn't go away.
and it's important to note that free cash is not really free cash. But it then, for the expenditure of that to occur, requires a vote at town meeting. So it's still, it's the voters have to decide. A recommendation may be made to use free cash, as often there is, at a town meeting, but it's a decision that the voters make at town meeting.
Why this year? We've had this for 5 years going on. Why this year?
Last year, the Board of Selectmen did not vote to put any issues up for an override. The determination of who puts, hi, it's nice to meet you. I'm the one on the other end of the email. So this is one that if in years past, as every year, the Board of Selectmen actually is the ones who vote to put things onto an override, onto a ballot or not, and different years have different perceptions. This is the year that it's been on a recommendation by the Finance Committee, and we've all been looking at this for a few years. We'll move on to number 3, if there's no other snow and ice. Please, no more snow and ice. Just in general this year. I've
use some ice.
I've packed away the winter clothes, the winter coats. So, question 3 is the public safety facility engineering, and I am going to turn it over to Eric, who has he's going to give us a presentation because this is a story best told when you understand the facts.
Yes, and so the Municipal Building Committee has been working for over a year now. Before that, it was the Public Safety Complex Committee that was working for about a year and a half. This is a large budget expense, and it is a complex expense to understand all the parts and pieces. In general, what the Municipal Building Committee has sought to do is try to solve the most facility issues to provide the best long-term value to the residents, and not let our safety services of police and fire follow the same route as the DPW story in town, where funding was neglected for general maintenance. The DPW barn needed to be condemned, the trucks needed to be pulled outside, the employees needed to work out in the environment for a year while funding and resources were sought to fix that. I don't think anybody wants to jeopardize our public and safety by just turning a blind eye to this issue. And this issue is not going to go away. I have several reports. I've got a bag full of reports. I'm not going to go through, probably could have had a 50-page slide presentation on this. I boiled it down to 10. I'm not going to show you the conceptual design studies that are all done in booklets and reports, but what I'd like to do is just generally go through the issues quickly. I have 10 slides. I'll do this in 5 minutes. And I will try to boil it down to tell you once and then tell you twice and then tell you a third time. The issues here are not new. This was first brought up in an assessment in 2004. The 2006 master plan for the town had the police station as the top priority of the town for facility needs. I think we could all look back and understand times and issues and finances and the economy. And then in 2012, the Capital Planning Committee took action. They created a site inspection report, and that every time I read the report, I wonder why I'm writing a new report, because in 2012, it's all written right here. The Newbury municipal facilities continue to operate well past their planned life expectancy. All you have to do is take a tour of the police station that's right below us. And I have to tell you right now that we're all sitting here, every time we move around and walk around, dust in the ceiling tiles are raining dust on the officers that are trying to work below us. They've had numerous issues, and if we can go to the next one. Sure. I'm not going to read everything that's on these, but I'd like you just to appreciate the list of issues that we've gone through. I've sort of abbreviated them and condensed them here. Again, they're all in several reports. They're listed on the town website. If you go to the town website and you go to boards and committees, you go down to the Municipal Building Committee and click on that link, You'll see the municipal building committee members, and you'll have several documents. You can also go back to the Board of Selectmen YouTube videos and watch presentations made where there were at least 4 joint meetings of the Municipal Building Committee, the Board of Selectmen, the Finance Committee, the Capital Planning Committee, and the Planning Board, all to discuss this issue and have input from all the boards and departments. This isn't the Municipal Building Committee just coming up with this issue. I would have to say that, there's 2 residents on this committee, myself and Richard Ronder, who's another one. I think Tracy kind of wrote me into this, and Frank corralled me because I'm an architect. That's my day job, and I said I'm willing to help and volunteer. So you can thank Frank for that. And this is
You wrote me into.
this is what I got into. So
He literally leaned over the back fence and said, "What can I do for the town?" Oh, we got a new one here.
Bad move.
So, in general, there's Massachusetts building laws that continue to be in violation. There's OSHA violations for working conditions down there. And what all these conditions and regulations that we're not meeting mean, it means there's a huge liability downstairs. I think people have a general, no offense, police guys, but aversion to the police, and you have all your past sins come forward when they're driving behind you, but you really should just go downstairs and take a look at it. Well, people get nervous, but they really are nice and friendly guys, and they're very, very dedicated to what they do. But the whole experience of
years of trying to build a reputation.
So
Don't worry, John.
the issue of bringing just the level of space that's downstairs for the public to use the police station if needed is probably 3 times as small as this table surface. That's all that's allotted. The issue of bringing in somebody in custody into the police station through that tiny vestibule, through the spaces that, some time ago probably served their purpose but do not today, are a liability for both the officers and the person that's being brought in custody. Next page, please. So there's health issues, there's operational issues. This building, the police station was built in 1970 downstairs in the basement. This building is much older than that. The window wells leak, and so there's flooding. The sewer system backs up, and unfortunately it backs up into the police station. Last year alone, there was over $80,000 spent in patch and repair, new floor, cutting out drywall, putting it back in. And a lot of those costs were done at the expense of services of police officers either taking time out to facilitate and move stuff, or coming in off their hours to help make this happen. It just seems we're spending money, wasting money as this project continues. And again, these issues are just not going to solve themselves. The holding cells are outdated. They don't meet the current correctional Massachusetts state codes. That means that the limited number of officers that we have to babysit people that are taken into custody. I know that I always look for the police log in town to see if my neighbors are on it, but it's not always printed. It's not always printed, but there's been about 110 arrests, Chief, 110? This year alone. So we're 4 months into it, 110. You can do the math. Not everybody gets arrested, 1 every day. They don't behave. It's several on the weekends, several on a Friday evening. As the weather gets better, I think that rate picks up a little bit more. And what does that mean? There's only 3 officers on duty during the evening. So if an officer is here and makes an arrest and brings somebody in and has to babysit them, that means that one officer or one side of the town is not being covered. They can't come in, do what they need to do the booking, put the person in the cell, and allow the dispatch person to watch that person because they have a deficient setup in which to do so. If we went to regional dispatch, the costs, which I don't have in front of me, could be debated, but you'd be trading a fee and you could reduce an officer, but what that would also mean for this town is that with the 3 people on every night, the police station would be closed. We'd have 2 officers driving around with nowhere to go. They'd have to come back, open up the station, do what they needed to do, and there would be nobody on dispatch. And then if you have other questions about dispatch, we can answer that as well. Can we go to the next one?
Sure.
So here I have a summary. I may have 3 pages of listed issues and safety to officers. The other thing to remember is that the police department is the police department. It's the harbor master services. It's the animal control. It's the shellfish constable. It's the emergency management, and we certainly do use that. We just don't have a room that never gets used because we don't have those types of issues in town. And the police department is both the police and the fire dispatch. Those temporary trailers that were bought to solve an issue are now 13, 14 years old.
What was it? I heard yesterday that the actual, when you talk about temporary trailers for temporary use, we're talking a year or 2 years to solve an immediate year. 13 years we've been relying on trailers.
So we're overpaying on heating and conditioning of those trailers, and those trailers themselves for the temporary issues are in violation of some of the state codes because they don't have the required facilities, and they were meant to temporarily stay an issue, not solve the issue.
Eric, we did keep the tires on them just in case we get called out that, you know.
Well, you might have to change them by now. So the Municipal Building Committee was formed after the Public Safety Complex Committee was formed, and the back in about 2010, the Board of Selectmen, understanding some of the issues that then started with the report written by Capital Planning again in 2012, they said, okay, we need to do something. Where are we going to do this? We can't build on Town Hall because we have this Town Hall here. Let's form a Public Safety Complex Site Selection Committee. And they went around and had 6 or 7 sites, and I wasn't around, I was here in town, but I wasn't on it, so I don't know the full history of exactly where it went, but the Yellow School was one of them, Mantor Field was one of them, the transfer station, land just past the transfer station of the town forest was one. Governors had said they might donate some land, and then other people were, sites were popping up here and there. So the Municipal Building Committee, the Public Safety Complex Committee, the Public Safety Site Select, there's been so many committees and we're still trying to figure out what the heck to do here, recommended 6 or 7 sites. The library was recommended, but each one of these sites had very serious issues or costs that took it out of, added extra cost. If we decided to put it next to the library or add an addition onto the library, then we would have to pay about $800,000 in grants that were received in order to build the library. So that's going in the wrong direction. Other sites like the town forest didn't perk. The Yellow School proved not to have the space requirements, and the renovations that were required to make the spaces for a police or a joint facility would just cost too much, and so those sites were passed. Out of that, the town hall, and also in looking forward, I'm not sure exactly who came up with the idea, but the public safety complex was thought that let's solve some other issues that we have. And we have an aging fire department next to us, and they stepped up and we're looking forward. And I think the story there is that the donations today, as I understand them, are about 25% of what they used to be. They're a nonprofit private organization that relies on fundraisers and donations. And if the town used to donate $100,000 for their operational budget, and they're only bringing in $20,000 now, what does that mean? It means we're underfunding the services that we're providing. We all think we're getting it for free, but we're not. So the Public Safety Complex Committee made the effort to try to negotiate with the fire department for the effort of the land and to keep the police close to town hall, which would be a great service and convenience to the residents. It would also provide easier maintenance. Through those discussions, it was thought that the combination of a fire and a police station would save on the costs of the synergy of saving front lobbies and dispatch and elevator and mechanical rooms and restrooms would all be added value, because and a single mechanical system would all provide great value for the longevity of the building. Simply 2,000 square feet, $400, $500,000 plus of savings just in combining facilities. And then the operational costs for maintaining and cleaning also are less. So every issue was looked at to try to reduce the cost, not only to build this, but also to maintain this through the future. And today, with the proper engineering and the proper design and good input, we can build a building for 50 years. You might have to replace the roof after 40 years, but you could build a good building that has longevity, that's still functioning long after the bonds are paid off, and that's going to be valued to everybody in the town. So there, you know, for over, when was the 1967 Protection Fire Company number 2? That was the building built. When was the company? So since 1942, the fire company is providing services to the town. And, you know, there's a long history. I think what I found out is there's a lot of people in town that are either members or have served or did serve or were volunteers that all made this service possible for us. So if you're not a fireman or have somebody or know somebody who's a fireman, you're in the minority. So there's a lot of people putting in a great effort here. The issues, I think, weren't the sale of the land. I think the issues were more of a membership issue.
Yeah, it was more of a, fire.
With the chief.
I'm Nathan Walker, chief of the Newbury Fire Department. So the fire departments, because they had been private fire companies for all these years to provide the service for the town, they've kind of remained in this place where they've been autonomous to themselves, kind of kept to themselves, providing the best service they can, trying to, you know, not cost the town a lot of money and provide a great service through volunteerism, through donation letters, through bonfires that we had. You know, and over these times, these things have changed. I mean, our facilities are 67, you know, the police department's at similar times. You know, the things that are happening over there mirror the same things that are happening down there. There's linoleum over asbestos, there's leaky windows, there's leaky roofs. We've just been tight-lipped trying to provide the service and do what we can for as long as we can. But it's got to that point now where our system can't operate that way anymore. We've needed some help for the town. We've come to the town and say, that's why you see a pumper up there. We want to continue to provide the best service we can for the town, but the town's changed. Our service and what we need to do to provide to the people of the town has changed too, in order to provide a service to our schools, to, you know, our age facilities, you know, those things. We need to provide those services to keep our people safe. So, you know, that's kind of, you know, that led us down the road. We were interested when it started as a public safety building committee. We started and we approached the table and we said, we're interested in being part of this, but there was a lot that had to transpire within us in our private company. The same way it had to transpire in Byfield, we're one town under the town of Newbury with two separate private fire companies, Newbury and Byfield, but we function together under the Board of Fire Engineers, through the town, and it's a real sensitive relationship that's worked really well for a long period of time. It's come to the point where time has caught up over there, where it hasn't caught up so much on the other side. They've been able to, you know, build a new facility. They're not in this place. They'll be a long time. It'll be 50 years before they're where we are here now. And so that's why we got involved. We reapproached the committee and said, well, we see what's happening. We know that this would be a good time for us to be on board. We can embrace all these problems with our facilities in one foul shot, you know, and knock it out of the park. Have a great facility because our relationship with PD, with Town Hall, and everybody right now, it's better than it ever has been. The combined police, fire, dispatch, and everything we have going on. So we only thought as it just to become a very strong thing for the town of Newbury. So we were happy to get on board to be able to do that. And so now we're here kind of saying there might not even be as much information as we have, as the police department has, but, you know, I have lists the same way. We do, there's not, you know, the same kind of volunteerism doesn't take place anymore. We do storm standby coverage. Guys are sleeping out in the hall. It's freezing on a cot. There's no place to sleep. There's not good facilities for our female members to take showers or get clean. Our gear is out, you know, in the dirty apparatus bay where it's, you know, where there's certain chemical. We do have Plymouth systems that suck the benzene and the chemicals used from the diesel apparatus, but our gear is out there. It's subject to light. That light actually degrades it and puts us into jeopardy. We're in fire situations. We have, you know, leaky roofs, mold situations, linoleum over asbestos. All these same issues, they're like mirrors to the police department. So that's why we wanted to be on board with this now. And so, you know, with that said, I hope that people can consider, you know, the combination and the fact that we are late to the game, you know, kind of popping in at the last minute. Now the fire department's on board. And I know that was one of the things that people had hesitation about, but we were on board because we saw after a winter like this that we didn't have the sustainability to survive another 30 years with our aging facility without approaching the town and saying, hey, we're going to need. And if the town was already looking to do a replacement with the police department, maybe their money is going to be spent and they wouldn't be able to take care of our needs. And we didn't want to jeopardize our services for the town. And so we thought it would be a good idea to get on board at that time. So,
Right.
Thank you.
anybody have any questions?
It's
about it?
not a back on board. We're back to we're full circle back to where we started and moving it forward again. So with the next slide, Nate, the chief, sorry, so all the issues. We'll move to the town hall real quickly. We have trailers outside. There's about 3,000 square feet on this first floor here, and there's about 1,200 square feet between the building inspectional services department and the Board of Health that are out in 2 trailers. If Martha, you want to step forward and just point to the ceiling? You know, everyone says it's great, but there's a leaky ceiling. I mean, that was, I think that was December. We're holding a meeting here, and it's 7 in the morning, and it's raining out, and the roof is leaking. You know, and people have continuously told me the town hall looks great. What are we doing to it? Well, the town hall, as I understand it, had about $460,000 worth of renovations and a lot of that, the town spent only $60,000 from their funds to do that. Supplies were donated, labor was donated, Essex House of Correction donated inmates for labor, for painting and such. And so we got a great bargain on that, and that's why the town hall from the outside looks so good. But that's not going to continuously happen, and we can't bank on that in order to make it happen again and again. So the building is old. There are space needs here. You come in, you conduct your business. It's a nice room for that, but there is no private room, not even a small room. You can go use the bathroom to have a private conversation should you want to take the assessor and say, come here, I want to talk to you privately. You do your business at this table, which is very transparent, but at the same time, there's no privacy here for you to do your business in town hall. There's also a lack of document storage in town where there's several containers, large shipping containers over at the transfer station that are holding records that are required to be held by Massachusetts general law that are in these unconditioned containers that you know, they're having issues. We just don't have the space for it. And truthfully, this project, in order to do the public safety facility, we have discounted some of the ideas that we had to solve every issue here at Town Hall. There was almost a $2 million budget for Town Hall, and it's just over $1 million now. So I think we've listened to people's issues and concerns in trying to keep the budget within control. Here's a police station facility comparison. It is from 2008, so the costs are a little bit higher. The 3.8 million is just over 4. It's 4.1. Construction doesn't go backwards. Escalation goes forward, and escalation, anybody in financing can tell you, is like a snowball. It just gets bigger. It's a snowball going downhill. It just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And if you start pushing off a $10 million project a year, you can expect about $200,000 of escalation. I just heard the other day that in Ohio, Columbus, Ohio, which you think would be a sleepy little town, a couple of our projects there, a library project had to add $1 million because the construction market is so hot in Columbus, Ohio, of all places. Columbus, Cleveland, things are going crazy. So costs are going up. That is a risk that we face, that if we push this off and turn a blind eye to this and 5 or 6 years go by, we'll be looking at a much bigger price tag. The $200,000 gets added to the cost, and then the next year that escalation amount, anywhere from 2%, which is kind of normal, it could be up to 4% if the market gets hot. If interest rates are going up, that means our bond financing rates are going up. That means construction borrowing costs are going up. For people, that means more people are going to jump in and say, I got to get my project done now, which is only going to make a higher market for the value of the project. This is a comparison, and so we have 20 police officers in town. They don't all work at the same time. Our population is, and we just lost 2 officers this month, 2 junior officers. They come here for training, suffer through the conditions downtown, and find greener pastures at better stations. And why is that an issue? Well, we're paying to train these rookie officers. Each time a new officer comes in, we have to train them for several months. We have to buy them the uniform. We have to buy them the equipment. And so we have an expense to train them, and then they leave. It's also, I'll say this the right way, it's not that we're not getting the best service and these guys are doing a tremendous job, but the best officer we can have is someone that's here for longevity, that knows us and meets us and sees us and understands our community, is part of our community. And so that is an issue, and it's all because of the facility conditions. Our population in the 2010 census was about, it was 6,666. So Air and Harvard, right in the middle with the circles, you can see that there's 20 officers, there's a population above ours, and they have a 12,800 square foot station. And if you look up and down the list of the building square sizes, we're programming a 9,000 square foot, and there's anywhere from 8 is the lowest up to 22. Salisbury has 40 officers. They're building an 18,000 square foot facility. Our combined fire and police is 20,000 square feet. We're, we don't have a lot of extra in the program. This probably should have come a little bit sooner, but in looking at the sites, the site was always an added cost. In looking at the Public Safety Complex Committee, the first time around, the fire company had Minco do a professional assessment. That assessment was $800,000 for a commercial building on a lot. That was part of the sticking point from at least our side, was kind of like, whoa. The price now coming back is $440,000 from the fire company in order to sell their 3 parcels. And that is basically to get out of debt. It's not a money grabber to fund their coffers by any means. They focused and they looked at the assessment and said, okay, this isn't a commercial viable property, so let's just figure out how to make this happen, and we'll do our part to greatly reduce our cost in order to move forward. The other big cost is, the sewer's failing here. The septic is failing here, the septic is failing there. Other places in town couldn't perk, and so we couldn't, great expense to have a septic system. So we looked at locations in town. The Bullseye is the center of town. It's just past the transfer station in the town forest. That's why the town forest was looked at, because it was the dead center of town. The only real water and sewer that we have is coming from Newburyport. Newburyport has said, for your town hall, we would hook up your municipal building. There's already a water supply from Newburyport to the town hall today. The connection would be just for sewer. If the town builds the public safety complex, we believe we can get Newburyport to extend the sewer and water to that facility, so we won't have, we can solve the septic issues. Other places in town were looked at like option C, but it was just too far down Route 1 to bring the sewer. You're digging through ledge, and it's $300 to $400 a linear foot just to put the water and the sewer in. And so each one of those sites just got more and more expensive. It seemed like a good option. We vetted it out, and so we passed on it, and that brought us right back here. The planning board also did a fair amount of study on their own and gave us their recommendation that the town hall, as it stands with the green, is perceived as and is a good place for the center of town, and that's why we're sticking with this site, and the fire company site is keeping the town hall operations here. This is the schedule that I mentioned, and like I said, it just started in 2004. We went to 2013. I think we could get on to questions now. And I guess I'll just jump to one item that I mentioned on a previous night. It's $11,625,000. It's broken up into a design phase. I've taken the total cost of construction, which is $9 million. There's about $2 million in soft costs for architectural and engineering fees, traffic studies. We still have to go through permitting. We don't get any discounts. Surveyor, geotechnical, wetlands, hazardous inspections, sewer coordination fees. I have a minimal contingency in the budget, and what I've done is what the committee has done, I should say, is taken just the cost for the design phase services, which means drawing of the plans. I would show you plans, but they're a little bit deceiving because they're conceptual design, and what that conceptual design did was it proved that the 20,000 square feet that we're looking for can actually fit on the site. We're in step 4 of like a 6-step process here. This isn't like we're just starting out and we don't have a lot of data to go on. So the cost for the design phase fees, and when you vote for the design phase fees, when you vote for your public safety services, you're really voting for the whole project. We're going to take the next step in order to solve and put this all back together. So it's up to $990,000. This is public bond money, so it has to go out, and we have to have architects bid against each other. There's 3 or 4 companies that are rated in this, or known in the state, because they specialize in fire and police stations, and we would hope to have one of those companies do it.
So do we want to open it up to questions now? Feel free, please come up to the microphone.
I have something to say. This does not surprise me. When I read this question 3, I automatically knew something was going on related to everything we discussed. What we don't really keep in mind is what the total impact is in terms of the last, well, in my case, 60 years. When I was a boy, I was born in Newburyport. We'd come down to the pond to skate. There was one chief, no other cops. When I built my house in 1951 and 52, we had 2 police officers in town. We didn't have the social problems that we have today. The whole pattern has changed. And I think that's your strongest point here, because I'm very much concerned with the problems that you're talking about. And I do think we have to take positive action on that. The problem is getting people to understand that we can't live with what we have, because it isn't the same town that it used to be when we put it together. And because you have so many new people in town, they have no way of comparing what was. Being involved in Newburyport in particular, as much as I have, the few people that I encounter on it myself believe that perhaps the root population of Newburyport is only 20% long-term of Newburyporters. That's because of the influx. The population of Newburyport ran constantly around 14.5. It's up to almost 18 now. Small wonder that, when I built the house on Hay Street, mine was the 9th house on State Street, on Hay Street. And now there's something like 220.
Hold on one second, please.
Yeah.
We need to get to
I realize
questions.
that, and
Yeah,
I'm
we're
about to shut up. So.
we do need to get it. We're almost to
And
8:30.
I also want to say, while I predicated my presence here on not being interested in writing something, I've already gone to work on this thing, on something I'm going to write it someday, because what we have to understand is that we're living in today and not yesterday. Everywhere.
Come on up to the microphone. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Carla Moss. I live in Byfield. And as I listen to everything, and I've gone to all the meetings this week, and I am very much in favor of passing everything. In order to sort of break the cycle of no overrides, first of all, people need to buy into why we're doing that. The other thing they need to do, and this gentleman sort of referenced this a while ago, is they need to know what the price is for them. Last Monday was the first time when, this past Monday, Eric mentioned he gave the price per 1,000, and then he gave the price for the $400,000 home at $273, so I calculated it out, and we figured it out. Today, we took the price of the $4 million tract, and I believe for a $400,000 house, it is just $23 a year?
Yeah, for the track, yes.
Okay, well, what's happening is all the people that are the no overrides that have their reusable signs, and they write to the newspaper, and they email us, and then they yell at you, and they talk in millions, so they totally threaten you. Now, what I think might be a nice idea, if it's legal, we have 3 polling booths. I think for each override, you have to have a list, and you have to say, override 1. This is how much it is per 1,000. This is for a $400,000 house, what it's going to cost you. Now, and to take it even further is, and if this is allowed, if you're able to have the information either print out or a computer, at the polling sites where you can pull up somebody's tax information, which is public, a lot of people may not even know what their taxes are, because if the husband pays it, they don't know. But they do know where they live. So,
Or vice versa. Or vice versa.
then what you do is you have a number of people at the polling site that are good with math and a little calculator. And you say, would you like us? We can very easily figure out what each one of these is for you, because all you do is you take the price of your house divided by the 414 or whatever, multiply it by the 1,000, and you can give them their prices. The other thing I think we all need to know is, I have heard by 3 finance men, you have all this debt that's going to expire, but we don't know how much it is. It would be really nice to know is how much is going to expire next year, you know, just per 1,000, and somebody could figure that out. You might, in 5 minutes, be able to give people what their cost is. Now, the other thing is, and I don't know, again, whether this is legal, well, I don't know, I've never done politics. I've been in sales. I've been in sales and marketing all my life, but I'm retired. If you could have somebody like Ryan, or the other woman, I talked to Robin Williams, the
School committee.
if you could have at least one representative at each polling, we only have 3 polling places. Now, is that
Only
not
2.
allowed?
There's 2 polling
Oh, there's
places,
2.
and it's not allowed. As much as if I could be at a polling place and giving my personal on each of these, I would.
Are you allowed to figure out the math for the people?
I don't know if we can, because it's not something that we could stand by. These are all, remember, they're estimates based on averages. So I would hate to say, your tax bill is only going to go up, you know, $287. Approximately and estimated.
I mean,
I think that if individual citizens committees come together, if you come here, people can help you here. Also, that unfortunately we're 4 days out from the election, is that the issues like that are usually you need a political action committee that is set up, and because then that's regulated too. But
her points are
they're very valid, and that's the thing that we were hoping that tonight would be one of those times that we could share that information as we have.
It is a marketing.
Yes.
Is there a spreadsheet somewhere? You guys must have looked at all this impact.
There is.
Yeah,
It's been in the paper, and we've got
I have
it.
reports, I've given presentations, I said at least 5 presentations for joint committee meetings. I held a public workshop in October that was advertised. I think I spoke to about 3 people, but it was on the YouTube video. The numbers quickly, what does an $11.6 million project cost residents? If we're asking for up to $990,000 for the design phase, we're talking about $16.43 per every $100,000 of property evaluation. If I take the average property value, which I had, and I guess I didn't update it to current terms, but if I had it around last December of 414, the number mentioned earlier was $421,000 as the average home. That's about $68 per year for the design phase fees. So the design phase gets hopefully authorized and approved. We start in on that. We get a note from the bonding company. We start paying the debt on that for up to 5 years until we get the full project to go, and then they'll roll that into one bond going forward. So there's less of a hit up in the initial years until the construction starts, and then we move forward. That said, the full cost and the projections are about $70.70 per year per every $100,000 of property valuation. The total increase is around $300 per year.
So
And that
to put that-
includes the 68. So ultimately,
to put that
all
in,
told.
in real terms, it's less than $1 a day. It's less than your coffee.
20 years.
20 years. $1 a day.
For what? What are you talking about? That
For
project?
the whole
And
project.
Tracy and I, we can work to get for by question the estimated tax impact based on an average home. We can get that and get that out on the town website.
we have,
I did that this afternoon. You know, the April 6th, the Newburyport News, if you can trust their figures, you know, I don't mean anything. But I went through every single one of the questions, and I calculated, because I've been hearing, oh, it's thousands and thousands of dollars, you know? And so I calculated for the average cost. I didn't do it for myself. And for the $421,000 house, if it doesn't even seem possible to me that in 2016, because it doesn't kick in until 2017, it would be $230 if everything passed. If in 2017, it'd be $388 for the average home. Okay, you know that's so it's it's not thousands.
All of these are estimates, and
Stuff is coming off then.
yes, and then remember, you also have the debt services coming off for other items. So there is that. And quite honestly, I went back and pulled my 10-year tax records, and my taxes it's gone like this. And you know why? Has nothing to do with what we're doing. It's not because we're incurring debt and debt. It's the assessments is the driver in your tax bill. So your tax bill might go up more because your assessment goes up. So that's the other part of it that you don't want to say, that if there's assessment increase, if this year your house was 421 and next three of the big houses go up next door to you, your assessment goes up, your taxes are going to go up. So it's not always just what you vote on.
Scott Ackerley. First thing, I think you've done an excellent job. I've looked through some of the information that you've done, and it's really amazing from a volunteer's perspective what you people have done. I'm just absolutely blown away. So I want to thank you very much for that. I was as skeptical as anyone probably about, we're building a $12 million town hall for, which I figured there's like 20 people working in a town hall, and that's like $600,000 per person for a town hall. That seems like an awful lot of money. But I think we need to overcome that perception, and I think the retiring debt is a crucial issue which you've got to make clear. That has to be brought out more clearly, because that's not something that occurred to me until you brought it up.
Very important.
And it is very important. It's very critical. And I also just was thinking that like I used to have made like a couple $100 contribution to the fire department every year, and they've always I have the greatest respect for the fire department. So instead of a $200 contribution, I'm getting a fire station and improved services. So
Exactly.
so I'd like to make that
good
point
point.
also. And the only other question I had is the senior center, and I don't know, was it ever discussed of bringing a senior center into this compact?
they called me and asked me where their space was, and I had to politely tell them if they had a program and they could tell us where the deficient spaces were, then somebody could help them on the next step. But no, there was not a closet for them anywhere in this project.
All right, because I think that might have helped. But anyway, we've got to get the message out, and so thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Dale Williams, first of all, I agree somewhat with what Bill had to say about we need to know the cost. So obviously, people want to know that. But we also need to know the need, and I think you've demonstrated that so far in the first three questions. And the groups that have come together to do all the homework and to put all these plans together, they know far more than all of us combined ever will know. And this may be too late because it's Thursday night and the election's Tuesday, but I want to applaud the people that have put the pencil to paper to come up with the need and also define the cost. My one question as it relates to this facility, I've lived here 23 years. I've never understood the relationship between Protection 1 and 2 and the town. But now we're going to have to buy the land from Fire Protection, and we're going to buy a pumper truck, and we're going to
We've already bought the pumper truck.
We've already bought it. We're going to finance it. And we're going to build a building. I just don't understand the relationships between the private fire companies and the public domain. Is it just the capital infrastructure that we have to spend as a town? I don't understand that.
I will defer to our fire chief.
The private fire companies came to be in the town, Byfield, well before Newbury, because Newburyport had a fire department before we did. and we wanted fire protection in our town. So they're founded as private fire companies. So these private fire companies, they raise the funds to keep the apparatus up to speed, to build their buildings. They did this by fundraising, by running ambulance services. What's happened over the years is the town has funded these private fire companies essentially to in what is called a flat rate every year. And so this essentially is money given to the town, to the companies, to lease all the apparatus essentially in time of emergency. What happened over the years is as the fundraising has gone down and the money's gotten tighter and tighter, the flat rate's gone up and up and up. So essentially what's kind of happening with the fire departments is almost the private aspect is becoming more of the benevolent operation of the fire department, and the fire departments are essentially becoming more dependent on the town. So eventually, at this point where the town is assuming the debt of Protection 2 private fire company, in a sense, their benevolent operation of private fire company Protection 2 will be its organization that pays for reclining chairs, coffee, but the facilities themselves will be paid for the town. So that private company won't be, it'll be defined much more like a municipal fire department. So there's the change. So essentially, these companies have existed for as long as they possibly can as these private companies without the need of the town, and that's changed based on the needs of the fire service in a town like this. So does that make any sense? Yeah. So it's much more for Newbury.
We're all town employees, too,
And Byfield's been able to provide a better service for a longer period of time with a different ambulance system. The way that we've run our ambulance companies privately with these private companies has changed too, insurance-wise, and that changes the way some of the money comes in and how that has to work. So there's been many factors that have led us to this place.
One follow-up, does the town realize the revenue from the ambulance service, or does that go to the private company?
Right now, it goes to the private company, but what you'll see on the annual town meeting warrant this fiscal year is, for fiscal year 16, we're establishing a formal enterprise fund in conformance with the law, and then you'll see the presentation of what the ambulance budget is. The revenues will all come into the town, the expenditures will all flow out of the town. So it will be a self-sustaining entity. And I have to say, as someone who came from another community and audited many communities with fire departments, I have never seen individual fire companies be able to sustain the fire operation for as many years as Protection 1 and Protection 2 have been able to do. But now it's time for the town to assume the obligation that really is theirs.
Other questions?
You're a private company, but are you also a nonprofit company?
Yes.
Now, I want to make one comment just from finance. The town has always paid for these, but it's been on a volunteer basis. And it used to be, for instance, for the Byfield Fire Company, held a big due at Dummer every year, and that was one of the governors. No, actually, they held it at Dummer, which has now changed to Governor. But that was a big fundraiser, and they had huge fundraisers, and it was a part of the town that no longer exists. It's no longer supported. And so the town has always supported them, but now we're changing it from a volunteer basis to a tax basis.
Thank you, Erica. My name's Mike Riley. I'm the police chief. And first of all, I want to thank Eric and the NBC members for all their hard work. Erica, I want to thank you and the members of your committee that put this together. Excellent job. I've been the chief since 2006. I've been working in town since 1987, 88, right around there. So I feel like a Newbury resident, although I live just over the line in Rowley. I'm just going to explain our situation downstairs, and I'm going to have an open invitation after the rest of the presentation. Anyone that wants a tour of the police station, it's your police station. Meet out front, and we will give you the guided tour of the police station so you can see what you have now as a police facility and what we are asking for. One thing that I do want to make a point of, and I made a point of it Monday night, the Municipal Building Committee put this program together, and they were very conscientious to put on the program exactly what is needed. They didn't overinflate so they can come back later and take things out. No, they put things in that we need, and if we can't justify it, we don't need it. So everything in there has been vetted. The price is the price. It is what it is. Police stations, fire stations are expensive. You know, maintaining the code for a lockup facility, for a police facility, is expensive. The state has certain mandates. We fail every year. Every year, our failure just opens us up to more liability. And it's not if something's going to happen downstairs, it's when. Someday something will happen, somebody will get hurt, either a police officer or somebody in our custody, because our facility is just completely outdated and inadequate, and the town will bear that liability. I've been screaming this from the rooftop since I became chief, and I know Chief Murray before me has been screaming it from the rooftop. We do lose junior officers quite a bit. Our officers want to be professional. They want to work at a professional police department. They want to work in a professional facility. They come here, and through all the hard work of the deputy chief who's in charge of my patrol operations, we have very professional services. Our police officers are well trained. They are enthusiastic. They are courteous. At least they better be. If they're not, I better be hearing about it. And they want to do a good job. The problem is, our facility is so outdated, we will never receive state accreditation. It will never happen. Our facility just won't mandate it. That's a whole level of professional pride for the town and for the police department that we will never attain. So our young guys, a lot of them come in, they fall in love with the town, they like the people, they get trained, we spend the money to train them and send them out on the road, and then they find out from all their friends from other police departments, hey, there's an opening over here. This is an accredited police department, and we have people that leave. It's just a matter of doing business right now. I'd like to have a police department of full-time officers and reserve officers who stay for years. I stayed for years because I love it. I know Deputy Chief Lucy has stayed for as long as he has because he loves the town. It's a great town to work in. I have a lot of pride. When I took over in 2006, my first week on the job was the Mother's Day floods and all that rain. And our police station flooded out to the point where we had water coming through the wall in the back room. We had to open up the front doors and lay hose and sandbags down our hallway for the water to funnel out. It got to the point where Deputy Chief Lucy went and got a jackhammer and jackhammered through the floor and just so all the water could drain. And that solved our flooding problem for those storms. But as soon as the water dried up, all the insects and rodents and everything else came up through that hole. So, you know, we're still living with those consequences. But we were saved from the flooding. So I just want to let you know, we try to do the best we can with the facilities we have. I have 4 kids in the Triton system. My oldest just graduated and is at UConn, honors. You guys did a great job. So I'm in full support of the schools. I'm in full support of everything. But I'm speaking from a public safety perspective. You're going to pay the price at some point. And this is your police station. It's your fire station. It's your town hall. Come and take a tour. Thing that bothers the deputy and I and our people the most is when we read things in the newspaper for people that I don't even know who these people are. They've never stepped foot in the police station. We've never seen them at a meeting, but they have all the answers. So vote whichever way you want to vote. That's your right as a citizen, but make an informed vote. It's your police station. Come and see it. Open invitation. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions related to the public safety facility engineering?
I have a question.
Yep, come on up.
360 or about $1 a day is really for the 5 items that are on the agenda today. There's still the $10 million that it's going to cost to build the facility. And if I am correct, it's going to be another $700 on per year on a typical $421,000 facility house. Because what I just heard, unless you correct me, because the only thing that could change would be the term. For $68 a year for the design phase, at $16.43 per $100,000 of evaluation, so at $421,000, that's $68 a year about, okay? That's for $990,000. If I'm talking about another $10.7 million, that's gonna be about another $700 a year, if it's the same term, correct?
Correct, but it's a different term.
It's a different term.
Okay, so,
Right.
help me out, because I want this facility as well. Now, what I wanna hear is the real numbers, the best you can give us, so we can make a decision wisely.
Understood.
That's all.
The term for the design engineering phase is only a 5-year term. At the point when hopefully the approval would be granted for construction, it all gets wrapped into a single bond issue. At that point in time, we can borrow for 20 to 30 years. That's the term that you're allowed. We're projecting the numbers that you're seeing in some of the articles, which right now, for the whole police department project, we're projecting between $237 to $268. And that would be, we're using the 25-year model. We're using an interest rate of 5%, which is pretty high right now. We're trying to estimate conservatively. So that's what we're anticipating at this point in time.
And that's town hall too?
That's everything.
That's the
entire
public
project.
safety facility.
Design, engineering, construction, police, fire, EMA, town hall, all of them. Okay.
And can I just remind people tonight, because I'm amazed by the process. I have heard so often that things aren't transparent and don't work well in town hall. You're seeing tonight a process that I'm very pleased with and very amazed with. It's all open. Because of these menu selections where people can really attach some interest and do some homework on the future for their town, you're seeing a process that hopefully will go forward in the future, but I think everyone should be very proud of the interest in how this process has happened tonight, and hopefully we'll be able to change that tradition of no.
Let me just comment.
Hold on, we have a question at the mic, please.
Thank you. Mark Gleckman, Riverview Drive. I'm a 40-year resident of Newbury, and as others have said, have never been prouder of a process as what's happened over the past year or so. So let me echo others' thoughts with a thank you to Municipal Building and FinCom and Capitol Building and Chief Riley and Deputy Chief Lucy and the Police Department and Chief Walker and the Fire Department. I said on Monday night in Byfield that I felt like this town was at a tipping point. I feel a little bit better about that tipping point tonight than I did on Monday, but I think we're still at risk here. And I would ask everyone to appreciate that an $11.20 tax rate, while on the surface is positive for a lot of folks, fixed income or not, I don't think this town can afford to wear an 11 and 20 cent tax rate as a badge of honor any longer. Not when our infrastructure is crumbling, not when we're being held together with duct tape for people who deserve better, and I don't mean just the police and fire, I mean the residents. I'd like to see this town become more progressive. I think tonight's a wonderful first step in that direction. And the only thing I would offer is that for the 100 or so people that are here tonight, for those of you who are in favor of this and the other overrides, it can't stop when you walk out that door tonight. You need to be able to corral your neighbors and your friends and your associates and anyone who votes in this town, if you feel as passionately about it as I do, that this should be a non-negotiable set of overrides. We've held on to this 11.20 tax rate for too long, and we've suffered the consequences, and I think it's about to be reversed, and I appreciate that. So, thank you.
Thank you.
To add what Mark was saying quickly, I think we're talking about, and I'll speak just for this project, but we're talking about 60 cents on the tax rate. Is that about right?
67,
60?
It's a little,
I wouldn't throw
Hard
that
to
number
say.
out, 'cause there's
Right.
too many factors that would.
So-
depends on how it's,
Depends on how it plays out
But
in the bond.
you can go to the DOR website and you can look up tax rates, and you can look up every tax rate in the 252 communities in Massachusetts, and you'll see that Newbury's ranked 304. And then if you keep looking at the list a little, well, around 304, because I bet it changes now and then. But below that, that means there's only about 52, call it 50 communities that have a lower tax rate by the number than Newbury. And if you keep reading the list and you look at the list, you can cross off the town of Nantucket, the town of Edgartown, the town of Tisbury, who have tax rates of $4.04 per thousand because their evaluations are so high. So we have a little room to go up, and we still won't be pushing the top or anywhere in the top half of the state.
Do we have any other questions? We have 2 more questions to go through tonight, and just want to make sure we've got the final questions on the public safety.
Not really a question, but I have to reinforce that a no vote on this, on these overrides will not make the problems go away. It's just going to make them more expensive to cure because the interest rates are going to go up. And eventually, all of these things are going to have to be done. So you have to think twice, and you have to speak to both your neighbors on either side of you, and let's try to get this done.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
Good to see you to go, but I want to say something. The major problem in all of this over my time is demonstrated here tonight. Great questions, thorough answers, good answers, and because we have a good turnout, we have to assume that, you know, people here, when intelligent, came, and so forth and so on. It's a fraction, a small fraction of the population. It doesn't make, Newbury isn't different in terms of its regard for the public. You work hard, you do it all, you know what all the details are and so forth and so on. When it comes to public relations, you don't know beans about public relations. And so newspapers exist to come in and get a story. I don't know if I already got a reporter here tonight or not.
yes.
Yep.
Yeah,
Jen
okay.
is here.
Hey, there you are with that. Fine. I continue to write a column, but I don't have anything to do with the newspaper. I send my columns from. But when you sit at the editor's desk, as long as I have sat at the editor's desk, and with all of the other publishers that I know, the greatest problem they have is getting public officials to think through their public relations problems before they start doing what they're doing, because they don't know beans about it. And so the reporter is left to try to pick up the details in something like this and write a decent story of what went on here tonight, and I'm sure he'll do it. It'll reach, and how many people aren't here tonight? Those are the people who will be at town meeting. So you have a major, always a major public relations problem, especially when something as dynamic as we've heard tonight is for the town. You have to put as much energy in the public relations of what you're doing as what you're doing if you want support. And we can't do it by me writing a column and say, well, they did a great job.
Please write that anyways, though.
It helps, Bill.
If I wrote it, they'd say, plant's nuts.
No, come on. We're not
No,
doing
I
so
mean
bad.
this, I mean this with the bottom of my heart, because it took 10 years in Newburyport to get an industrial park thing through to the people. 10 years. And I wrote most of that. It takes an extraordinary amount of time for people to understand what is important to them about what you're trying to do. You have to tell the people that. And I leave you with that, because you really got to do that. Don't be afraid to tell them the truth about what's going on. I don't mean you should at the beginning, but when you begin to get things, for God's sakes, let people know. That's what it's all about. And on that note, good night.
Doing our best. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wally Ziller. I'm a 36-year member of Protection Fire Company Number 2. Just like Chief Riley, I want to extend an invitation. We'll have members over there. The station will be open tonight. If anybody wants to come over and ask questions or look around. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're going to move along now to question number 4, which also has a public safety aspect to it as well. This is question 4, which is the pumper truck. Shall the town of Newbury allow to assess an additional $420,736.17 in real estate and personal property taxes? Why? This is the question I've been asked on the website, is why is this on the ballot? Didn't we buy the truck last year at town meeting? The apparatus has been, we have already entered into the agreement. It is being built. The town has already agreed to fund the expenditure. This is being done because it would be a preferred way to pay for the project. This is a one-time assessment on personal property, on taxes. It will only be in effect for this year. It will be collected for the sole purpose of paying that amount of money on the taxes. It will not go forward the following year. It will not come back. It will save the town $60,000 in interest payments by paying it off in a lump sum. So it is a ask for everyone to give a little so we can save that money from our other reserves and unencumber our reserve fund, which is holding, which it's the land sale fund is where we have attached. So that money, once it's sold out of the land sale fund, never comes back. We have, unless we sell more land. But this is the prudent
more
way
land.
to pay for this. So,
Questions?
questions?
Okay.
It's a real straightforward one.
That one was, I took that one. I knew that one. The last question for tonight, or the last question on the ballot, is the road improvement program, and this is a general override in the amount of $125,000 for the purpose of funding a road improvement fund for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2015.
Erica, let me flesh that out just a little.
You got it.
Chuck can't be here tonight. He has a medical procedure coming up tomorrow. It's not drastic, but he couldn't be here tonight. Chuck discussed this with the Board of Selectmen, and he felt strongly about it, and we began to think about it, and we thought it might be worthy to put it before the voters. What prompted this is, obviously, the roads are in very bad condition. We have also done a $60,000 study, and Chapter 90 monies are woefully not enough to solve all our problems. So, with the $60,000 prioritization study that we did, and with our highway superintendents or supervisors list that he has, it makes sense that this might be a good time to start to put that kind of money aside every year to fix our roads. And that was a little bit of the thinking that went into that, because of the fact that shrinking Chapter 90 money, we now have the study in place, we have the intellect behind proceeding in a qualified fashion to fix our roads.
The, what this will do is that if this passes the ballot and passes at town meeting, it will increase the budget for the road improvement from a number of $100,000 to $225,000. The estimated tax impact is $40 on an average property valued at $421,347. Any other questions about this? That's a general override.
This is just a visual. Dale Williams again. I drive over to West Newbury quite a bit. They have fabulous roads for the most part, but they also have a tax rate 50% higher than ours. Goes to the point about the $11.20. I can't even have an enjoyable ride to the dump anymore. Because Highfield Road, if it doesn't knock my wheel nuts off, it knocks my dentures out, okay?
That almost burned last week.
So we desperately need improvement. We've already done Coleman Road to the extent, I don't know how that fit into the plan, but take a drive in West Newbury. It's beautiful. You keep your money in your pocket. We need to do something in this town.
Thank you, Dale.
Thank you.
That's per year, that's every year?
Yes, this is a general override, so it will be added to the tax levy capacity this year, and then that's where we start the tax levy capacity, that 2.5 goes up from there.
Just a quick comment, Marshall Jesperson on the Finance Committee, but also the Capital Planning Committee. One of the things that the Capital Planning Committee has done and continues to do is to look forward to where we need to work on the town, basically to keep our infrastructure in good shape. And so roads falls into that, but we have to do the planning now for what's going to happen going forward, because it's going to be a cycle of, we fixed Coleman Road this year. I rode my bike on that road. It was really bad. And 15, 20 years down the road, we're going to be back there again. And so this is the kind of planning that we have put in place as a body within the town to make sure that the town that you live in is the town that you want to live in. Thank you.
Dale, as a result of the study, I'm told that one of the roads that's been indicated highly for improvement is Highfield Road. And Boston.
When are we gonna get to see the list?
Do we have, the study is very close to being, it's a draft form. So,
School building plans from the state.
are there any other questions on the questions tonight, or anything else that people would like to raise?
On the previous one, what's the average price?
Of that one is for the, it is for the pumper truck, wrong page.
135.
135. And I will make a
1 year
personal
only.
thank you to Chief Walker and the Fire Protection Company too, who came to my home 2 weeks ago, and my next door neighbor's home actually, when I came home one day to find that her burn pile had gotten out of control and was taking the field that goes between Highfield and Scotland Road. It was coming across the field. And she did not have a working hose and was not able to walk and did not have a cell phone. And I called, and by the time I got to them and the fire had started to spread, at one point it was taking down the trees. I have pictures of that on my laptop, going to the trees on Highfield Road. An hour and 15 minutes, they had to have the pumper truck out there, the old one, because there's no town water where we are. There is a well, and that was what saved. But I was out there holding my cell phone going, what do I do if this just keeps going? And I was very, very thankful for that, and for all of the public safety facilities and the men and women that have served and came out and were in that field and were there for that day. So it's one of those things you never want to do, but when you call 911, you want to know that they're going to come. I feel very strongly about that, so. Yes?
Is there a way for a voter to know that it's a one-time cost?
It's a capital, and that's what we can, Tracy and I can work to put together a quick grid to get up on the website as quickly as possible. To do that, to say capital.
I know, but.
Yeah, the capital would mean, we could write that out, that's capital one time. We can, we did.
We did one went out with the census, not with the chart, but we've sent them out with the census.
We can't hand anything out at the polls. We also cannot use.
But you could make a sign
Well,
that's different.
the thing is, there's a fine line between just like with the school department, can't advocate for.
You can't use
town
resources
to advocate for a vote one way or another. That's why this is a voter information night. And despite the fact that I've already voted and I know how I voted, it's your decision to vote how you want to vote. But early indications show some overrides running towards approval.
We did exit polling.
I have to be away for business travel next week, so I had to vote this week. So, and if you do need to, if you're going to be out of town on Tuesday, you can vote here until noon on Monday. But any final questions this evening? I want to sincerely thank everyone who gave of their time this evening to come here and to